Good morning, and welcome to Barbara's Bulletin. I'm your host, Barbara, and we're glad you're joining us today for another in-depth look at the stories that are shaping our world. To start, we're focusing on a developing story out of the United States, where President Donald Trump has been involved in a contentious issue with one of the country's most prestigious universities, Harvard. The situation centers around the administration's move to block foreign students from attending Harvard, citing concerns over national security and alleging that some of these students may be involved in illegal activities. According to reports, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem revoked Harvard's ability to enroll foreign nationals, which could affect thousands of students and significantly impact the university's finances. This decision was met with swift legal action from Harvard, arguing that the move is arbitrary, capricious, unlawful, and unconstitutional. A judge has since suspended the administration's action, allowing international students to continue their studies at Harvard for the time being. However, this isn't just about foreign students. It touches on broader issues of academic freedom, immigration policy, and the role of universities in society. We've also seen comments from President Trump defending the bloc, questioning why countries that are not always friendly to the United States should have their students educated at Harvard without contributing financially to their education. He has also mentioned the significant amount of money the U.S. gives to Harvard and expressed a desire to know more about these foreign students. Harvard, on the other hand, sees this as an attack on its autonomy and the principles of academic freedom. The university argues that it cannot comply with demands that infringe upon its right to manage its own affairs, including who it accepts as students. This story highlights the complex interplay between national security concerns, educational institutions' rights, and international relations. It's a multifaceted issue with implications not just for Harvard or the United States, but for global academic exchange and cooperation. We'll continue to monitor this situation and provide updates as more information becomes available. For now, it's clear that this is a contentious issue with far-reaching consequences. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. We're glad you're still with us as we dive into the latest developments in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Today we're focusing on a significant exchange of prisoners of war between the two nations, as well as the recent escalation of violence in the region. According to reports, Russia and Ukraine have completed a record-breaking prisoner swap, exchanging 1,000 people on each side. This historic agreement was reached after negotiations in Istanbul and marks a rare instance of cooperation between the two countries. The exchange is seen as a positive step towards easing tensions and potentially paving the way for further diplomatic efforts. However, despite this breakthrough, violence continues to plague the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for increased international pressure on Russia to halt its strikes, which have resulted in significant damage and loss of life. The Russian military has been accused of targeting civilian areas, including residential buildings and critical infrastructure. It's essential to acknowledge the complexities of this conflict and the varying perspectives involved. While some view the prisoner swap as a beacon of hope for a peaceful resolution, others argue that it may not be enough to address the underlying issues driving the conflict. As we strive to provide a balanced understanding of the situation, it's crucial to consider the human cost of the ongoing violence. Civilians on both sides are suffering, and the international community is urged to continue advocating for a ceasefire and diplomatic solutions. In related news, Russia has announced plans to present its terms for a potential peace agreement, although details remain scarce. The Ukrainian government has expressed skepticism, citing concerns about Russian intentions and the need for concrete actions towards de-escalation. As we continue to monitor developments in this evolving story, one thing is clear. The situation remains volatile, and the path forward is uncertain. We will keep a close eye on further updates and provide you with timely analysis and insights. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Barbara's Bulletin. Welcome back to Barbara's Bulletin. As we wrap up today's show, I want to take a moment to discuss a significant development that's been making headlines around the world. You may have heard about the recent meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa at the White House. During their discussion, President Trump brought up the topic of land expropriation in South Africa, sparking a lot of debate and controversy. To give you some context, the South African government has been working on a policy to redistribute land from white farmers to black South Africans as part of an effort to address historical injustices and inequalities. However, President Trump's comments on the matter have been widely criticized for being inaccurate and inflammatory. According to reports, President Trump claimed that the South African government was seizing land from white farmers, which is not entirely accurate. While it's true that the government is seeking to redistribute land, the process is more complex and nuanced than a simple seizure of property. To get a better understanding of the issue, I want to share with you some insights from experts who have been following this story closely. Michael Albertus, a scholar on land reform, notes that South Africa's policy is actually quite moderate compared to other countries that have implemented similar measures. He argues that the new policy is hardly radical, and that one of the main complaints is that it hasn't done enough to address the legacy of apartheid. On the other hand, some critics argue that the policy could lead to economic instability and even violence. However, others see it as a necessary step towards addressing the historical injustices and inequalities that still persist in South Africa today. As we explore this complex issue, it's essential to remember that the history of apartheid and land ownership in South Africa is deeply intertwined with issues of race, power, and economic inequality. While it's crucial to acknowledge the concerns and fears of all parties involved, we must also recognize the need for redress and reconciliation in a country that is still grappling with its past. In conclusion, the debate around land expropriation in South Africa is multifaceted and contentious. As we strive to understand the complexities of this issue, it's essential to approach the topic with empathy, nuance, and a commitment to fairness and balance. That's all for today's Barbara's Bulletin. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay engaged.